Okay, good morning. What we're going to do today is we're going to show you a little presentation that I myself have had success with introducing clients to what it is that we do. It's a great first conversation to have with clients to introduce your services and the idea of holistic financial planning and really set up the priorities for your future meetings and your future discussions with that client. What I want to stress is that the presentation that we do today, you do not have to do word for word with your client. It's going to be a natural conversation that happens with that client. But if you can use this structure to help you keep that conversation on point and to help you make sure that you touch on each of the financial cornerstones for planning, then I think you're going to have great success in your first meetings. We're going to use Craig here as our example client, and we'll start the discussion now. So Craig, thanks very much for meeting with me today. I appreciate that your time is valuable. One of the things that I wanted to start with was just to give you an overview of what it is that we do at Freedom 55 Financial and how it is that I work with clients. Do you think that would be valuable?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, fantastic. So the first thing that I like to introduce to the clients that I work with is the idea of holistic financial planning. And when we're discussing holistic financial planning, what we need to understand is that your financial life can be divided into two separate but equally important areas. The first is the one that we most commonly associate, and that's our wealth, the accumulation of our wealth and the management of that wealth. And the other part that is often focused on a little bit less, but we believe is just as important, is understanding what risks to that wealth exist. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, within our wealth, I'll begin here. There's a couple of different areas that we focus in on as financial advisors. The first is an area that we call cash flow. So cash flow is probably a concept that you're relatively familiar with.
Yeah.
It's our access to cash, and we like to think of it as important for any emergencies that may come up and any financial opportunities that might come up. So an emergency that might come up, something like your car is kaput and you need access to money to fix that or to get a new car. An opportunity could be something like your friend, he's got a rental property that's already tenanted, ready to go, and he just needs a little bit more for that down payment. It's a great growth opportunity for your wealth. Yeah. These are the types of things that we need access for. Now, Craig, if I was to ask you, do you have 3 to 6 months accessible cash available to you right now? Is that something that you could say yes to?
I'd have to probably use my line of credit. So
okay.
No.
Now, if we could put you in a position where instead of using a line of credit, you were accessing already accumulated funds, would that be more comfortable for you?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Okay, so those are the types of questions we're going to ask when we analyze your cash flow as part of your financial security plan. The next area that we look at, which is near and dear to most of my clients' hearts, is retirement. Now, Craig, if I ask you, have you considered retirement and really thought about it? Is that something that you've put much thought into?
Not yet. Well, I dream about it, but...
Okay, you dream about it. Tell me a little bit about that dream. What does that look like to you?
Well, I'd like to be able to retire to like somewhere warm, like Florida or something like that, and then really just spend my summers at the cottage, family cottage that we have, so...
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as putting something on paper, a plan on how to achieve that, that's not where you're at yet. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at kind of getting from 1 month to the next.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's important that we put that plan on paper and that we really analyze that plan because there's two factors that affect retirement. The first is what we call the problem of inflation. So when I say inflation, is that a term that you're relatively familiar with?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, and I typically use this example. When you were in high school and you went into the pop machine, how much did it cost you to get a pop?
It's like 50 cents.
Okay, if you go to the hockey rink with the kids today and you go to get a pop or a Gatorade, what is it going to cost you?
$3.
Yeah. So over time, things cost more. That's the problem of inflation, right? And that's going to continue through your retirement. It doesn't just stop because the world knows that you're retired now, right? But to battle the problem of inflation, we have the power of compounding growth. Compounding growth is the ability of your money to snowball over time and to achieve some competitive advantage over this inflation problem. Does that make sense to you?
Totally, yeah.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Now, going over to the risk side of our drawing here, the first area that I look at with clients when we're talking about risk is something called living benefits. Now, living benefits asks us two very simple questions. The first question is, what would happen if you became ill, and what would happen if you became injured? So, Craig, have you ever experienced a time where you couldn't work because of illness or injury?
No, I haven't.
And that's excellent. You're very lucky to have never had to experience it. Now I need to ask, do you have a plan in place in case that were to happen?
Well, I think if at work, I'd be like, if I miss work, I've got some benefits.
Okay,
I think.
So there's some benefits at work.
Yeah.
There's a group plan. Good to know. Now, one of the things that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to analyze that group plan and take a look to make sure that it really covers what it is that you want. But not all illnesses and injuries are created equal, and the ability to keep your household running during any one of those unexpected events is very important to the overall financial security plan that we developed for you. The next area that we look at is something that's called estate planning. And estate planning asks two other very simple questions. Okay? The first is, who is it in your life that relies on your income? And who is it that would be left with your debts if you were to leave the world yesterday? So when I talk about estate planning, someone is going to be immediately affected by your death. Who would that be in your life?
Well, it'll be my wife.
Okay. And does your wife currently rely on your income to keep the household running?
Absolutely.
Is it a 2-income household or a 1-income?
It's like 1.5, so she's part-time. Yeah.
That's good information to know. But if that one income, your income, left the household, there might be a gap.
Yeah,
Is
for
that
sure.
correct?
Yeah, definitely.
And when we discuss things like debts, are there debts that would be left over?
Well, our mortgage.
Your mortgage would be one.
Big one, yeah.
Okay. Now, currently, do you have a plan in place that you know that your income would be replaced if you were not able to earn it, and that those debts would be covered if you were no longer able to service them?
Yeah. Well, I think I have some through work.
Okay.
And then I don't know, but I think I got one on my something on my mortgage. Like when we did our mortgage, they said to just sign here, and it was either if I lost my job or died. I can't remember, but I think I have some sort of insurance with my mortgage.
Good. So it sounds to me like you've put some planning in place, but you're not exactly clear where that planning has arrived at, right?
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that we should probably know for sure whether or not these things are taken care of?
Probably, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we are going to want to take a look at what you've already done and make sure that it's achieving your goals. Okay?
Sounds good.
Now, when we look at this diagram as a whole, and the wealth side of your financial security and the risk side of your financial security, it's important to understand that there's a reason why we've made some overlap here. Okay? It's because we see both of these areas as informing each other as a part of the other. And one of the things that we're very good at Freedom 55 Financial, in fact, we're the best in the league at, is making sure that anything that is part of your risk planning also has opportunities to grow your wealth. And anything we do on the wealth side of your planning is protecting you from the risks that might arise during that time. So holistic planning means that we don't look at them separately, we look at them together. Okay? Now, we've just very briefly gone through each of these areas, but I want our time today to be as effective as possible. So I think it would help if we maybe prioritize some of these discussions. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'll go ahead and ask you, as I was going through these different areas, which was the first one that came to mind as important to you?
Actually, that estate planning part, because I didn't realize just sort of how bad it could be for my family if something was to happen.
Okay, so we should definitely,
Because I don't know anything
like
about
I said,
it.
yeah, make sure that that number is on a page and that we've got everything taken care of that you want, and we will do that. And what next would be in your list of priorities?
The cash flow. I didn't even think about that.
I think that's
as far
very
as
sensible,
opportunities go. Yeah.
Excellent. And third?
Probably the living benefits part that you mentioned. Again, I don't know anything about what I've got at work. I've just told I had some.
So it's an area that maybe hasn't seen enough attention in the past.
Yeah.
And that makes fourth, retirement planning. Now, what I want to assure you is that every cornerstone of financial security is going to become part of the plan that you and I work with together. But we're going to focus on it in order of your priorities.
Okay.
So if we've got some time right now, I'd love to get right into estate planning and maybe ask you a few more questions about what you did at the bank and what you have at work. Does
Sure.
that make sense?
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent.